All right, welcome along to the RTE Soccer Podcast. I'm Raf Diallo alongside Anthony Pyne of RTE Sport Online. We'll be looking back at the weekend's action in the Premier Division, First Division and Women's National League. And there was also the small matter of an FA Cup final and also a lot of action at both ends of the Premier League across Sunday. And we're joined by Karl, Sheppard and Paul Corry to share their expertise across the next hour or so. But before we do that, the Late Late Show this Friday have got a soccer special, a celebration of a centenary of the FAI. So rather than myself kind of explaining what's going to be coming up, here is Ryan Tuberty as he explained it on last Friday's show.
What a delight to be able to tell you that Uachtaráin na hÉireann, President Michael D. Higgins, will be live in studio with us here next Friday night. He's a massive... Oh, you poor thing. We've just given you gold. He's a massive soccer fan, as you might know, so it's fitting then that we'll also have stars from the Ireland senior men's and women's soccer teams in here, as well as senior team managers Vera Pauw and Stephen Kenny, and some of the stars of Italian 90 will be here. So it's going to be pretty special as we celebrate 100 years of the FAI, and the music next week comes from David Gray and Dan McCabe. So it's a busy night, our penultimate night of the season.
All right, so that's to look forward to this Friday on the Late Late Show, RT1 and the RT Player. But from the FAI to the FA and the FA Cup final, Paul Corry, commiserations about Saturday. Obviously, Liverpool winning on penalties for the second time against Chelsea in a decider this season, as they try at least to win at least three or four of the quadruple. But we'll talk about the Premier League title race very, very shortly. Paul, obviously, look, Liverpool have plenty to celebrate there, but from a Chelsea point of view, with everything that's happened in the second half of the campaign, do you have any concerns about them going forward? Obviously, change of ownership and also just a lot of uncertainty in terms of the playing squad and contracts.
Yeah, I'd say for most Chelsea fans, the uncertainty probably lies within the playing squad, and then with also Thomas Tuchel and just getting him nailed down. There's obviously been a bit of movement over the last couple of weeks. Looks like Rudiger is out the door. He is out the door. Christensen looks like he's following, as does Azpilicueta. So that's three kind of mainstays from that back five have been pivotal over the last 12, 18 months, particularly in that Champions League success. And I think for the fans, they probably just want to make sure that they're not losing too many more and having to kind of rebuild and replace some of the key personnel within the squad. I think first and foremost, Raf, I think Tuchel needs to be, his contract needs to be solidified. He's been, instrumental since he's gone in. They were probably a bit all over the shop when Lampard left them. Put great kind of structure in and around the team, really good organisation, and bar kind of a few blips this season, potentially could have gone a little further in the Champions League, and just obviously on the wrong side of two penalty shootouts within the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. So there's not a huge amount wrong. There's not a huge amount you need to fix. There's obviously probably a couple of question marks over the signing of Lukaku in particular and the fit within the squad. But you're probably just looking for that structure to be solidified, that the key personnel are staying, and then the transition from Abramovich over to the new owner takes place, and make that as seamless as possible. But there's, the games between Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final and the FA Cup final were so tight. Even the two games in the league, they were both level draws. There's not much to separate between the two sides on any given day. So they're not that far off. I think consistency in the league, they're quite a far bit behind the likes of City and Liverpool. But a couple of additions like we've seen in any squad can make a huge difference. And if they can have a good summer, and if they can keep the core group together, well, then things should be okay. But you do really want to see kind of that takeover kind of processed and gone through and move on to new beginnings.
Yeah, it was just one point on them as well. I think there was an interesting comment from Tuchel. He was just before just in and around the FA Cup final, where he was talking about, I think he was aware that Lukaku's representatives were speaking to the new owners, and that kind of communication issue there. I don't know if that leads to any sort of lingering concern about how the new, not necessarily how the new owners come in, but just the new administration and just how communication happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, Lukaku's a problem. It really is a big problem when you spend that much money on a centre forward and you're paying him the wages that you were paying him. You really want to see a return on investment on that signing, and it just hasn't worked. They look a far stronger team when Havertz plays through the middle. They seem far more fluid. And you can see in Lukaku, in his performances, that he is lacking quite a bit of confidence. we haven't seen any sort of the performances that you would have seen at Inter Milan. Is that because it's a step up from Serie A? Potentially, but basics of controlling the ball and passing the ball have been way off it from a Lukaku point of view. And that positions a problem within Chelsea about what it is you do with him, because what you don't want is what you mentioned there, Raf, is the interview with Sky Italia early on in the year. That really kind of threw them off course, and there was a number of bad results that followed from there. And then you don't want kind of mutterings before an FA Cup final that just distracts the squad and distracts the players from what it is they're meant to be focusing on. So I'm not sure that that's a problem that exists within the squad and within the club. I think it does exist within Lukaku, and how they rectify that situation, whether they kind of cut their losses and sell him at a discounted rate and kind of pay some of his wages between now and the end of his contract. That would be a huge loss to take. With the financial situation and the way it is, are they able to do that? Or do they try to proceed with Lukaku? Do they build a squad around Lukaku? Does somebody like a Werner have to be shown the door in order to give Lukaku time? I'm not really sure. And that is probably something that probably needs to be high on the priority list this summer, about actually rectifying that situation, because you don't want to go into the second season and those mutterings becoming louder and louder. And it's happened wherever he's gone. Same at Manchester United. Obviously, things are going well into you didn't hear, but when things go down, you do seem to hear a bit from Lukaku's entourage, and that is distracting for the squad. So certainly something that needs looking at.
Yeah, and in the league, in terms of the final week now that we're entering in the Premier League, so Steven Gerrard could play a key role at both ends of the table. They're playing Aston Villa are playing Burnley midweek, and then they have Manchester City on the final day. So in essence, he could actually cost Manchester City the title if results go a certain way, and at the same time help relegate Burnley.
Yeah, I think he was in his press conference during the week, he was saying he doesn't really care about the subplots, but I can tell you now, he definitely does. He will be 100%, I suppose, trying to motivate his players that little extra bit to try and get, I suppose, a result against City and see if he can get Liverpool the title. I know I'd say he spoke previously about his slip and how much it hurts him, so I suppose he very much sees this as an opportunity to, I suppose, get one back for Liverpool and hopefully, in his eyes, win them the Premier League if all going well on their end.
Yeah, and then just in terms of shouts, because predictions are a hard game, and generally people always get them wrong, but there's no harm in doing them anyway. So we have the Premier League, the top four, and the relegation battle. I might start with yourself, Anthony. Do you see any situation there where Gerrard actually does manage to stop City in their tracks and then gives enough of a space for Liverpool to go on and win the title?
No, I don't. I think they'll hammer Villa. Like, I was watching City West Ham yesterday. There's periods, maybe 15-minute periods, where West Ham don't get out with their half. Now, West Ham are just about as organised a defensive structure as you'll see in the Premier League. Very, very well set up by David Moyes. They rolled through those storms just about, got out with a point. They took great out balls in Bowen and Antonio. And I just don't think Villa have enough to get through that sort of pressure. It'll be the very same Sunday, maybe even worse, even more intense from City's end. They're going for the league. And I think, if they have a 15, 20-minute spell where Aston Villa actually cannot get out of their half, you can see them maybe being 3 goals up inside 15, 20 minutes. They're capable of that. So I can't see it, Raf. In terms of going down, I fear that Leeds are going to go. I think Everton are okay. I think Everton will win. I think they'll beat Crystal Palace. And then for top four, I think Tottenham are going to sneak it. So that's...
Yeah, and Karl, how do you see this going in terms of the top end, top four, and then the relegation?
Yeah, I suppose for myself, I see City obviously winning it. I don't see anyone stopping them. I think Spurs are in the driving seat at the moment. I think they've that momentum behind them, and I think it's Newcastle for Arsenal, which is a sticky game. I do think that Spurs will get the top four, and then I suppose for the bottom, I actually think Burnley will go down. I think when you see the celebration they had against Watford, kind of reminds me of when I was at Shelbourne and we were celebrating after beating Sligo, and we thought, okay, we've done it, we're safe. And next thing you know, you're in a dogfight and you've kind of not down tools, but you've kind of let maybe 5% off. And once you do that, it's kind of hard to get it back. So I actually think Burnley might go down as well.
Yeah, and Paul, just those three things.
Yeah, I fully fancy City for all the points that Anthony made there. Arsenal, it just stinks of a game where they're going to drop points tonight against Newcastle. For some reason, I felt for the last number of months that they get top four, so I'm going to stick with that, Raf, now that I've come this far with it. And I probably with Shep on that. I think Burnley will go down. I think Everton will win against Palace on Thursday night. And then I could see Burnley just losing their last two games. I kind of feel like that bit of momentum that they had over the last number of weeks has maybe just died away a bit. The last two games, they've been pretty poor. I thought they were poor against Tottenham on the weekend. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were to lose their last two remaining games. And to be brutally honest, I probably want Burnley to go down out of those three teams. I think Leeds and Everton offer a hell of a lot more. So I probably kind of like to see it go that way. But I mean, there's going to be so many twists and turns, isn't there, both the top and the bottom between now and the end of the season. So it'll be great to watch.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the main reasons I might want Burnley to stay up, and I'm kind of neutral on it, but it will be Nathan Collins probably be the only thing. He's been really good the last few weeks since he stepped in. But a final point before we go on to more domestic matters, and it's Erling Haaland, who has just finished up at Dortmund. I was watching a part of his final game against Hertha Berlin, and he scored a penalty to finish things off. So obviously he's joining Manchester City, but a lot of the question marks are in regards to how he's going to fit in there. Obviously, he's a top class young player and he's only going to get better. But Karl, just looking at him as a striker and how he might fit into the way Pep works, do you see this being seamless?
Yeah, I don't see an issue. I think when you look at, I suppose, players that sometimes take a while to adapt to the Premier League, it can be kind of like the Havertz, who I suppose aren't physically strong or maybe not used to such a high tempo, but when you look at his goal returns, not just in the Bundesliga but also in international football, he's built for the Premier League. He's strong, he's quick, he's a fantastic finisher, and again, he can vary his finishing up from, I suppose, caressing the ball into the corner to absolutely breaking the net and taking the keeper with him. So he's I don't see any issue in him. I suppose with the amount of chances City can create with Kevin De Bruyne putting crosses in, I think it's only a matter of time before he's. But again, we all probably would have thought that about Lukaku at the start of the year. So sometimes it doesn't work, but with Haaland, I can't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think the only thing we can look forward to, at least, well, actually not even look forward to, but kind of dread, is the amount of promos they're going to have beforehand when the Manchester Derby happens. And I know exactly what clip they're going to bring out. It'll probably involve his father and a certain former Ireland captain. But anyway, to the SSE Electricity League Premier Division over the weekend, Finn Harps lost 1-0 to UCD at home. So that's a huge result for UCD, which we'll talk about shortly. Dundalk beat Bohemians 3-1. Shelbourne continue to win at home at Talca Park now with a 1-0 win at home to Drogheda United. In the big game at the top, Shamrock Rovers beat Derry City 1-0, and then Sligo Rovers and St. Pat's drew 1-1 at the Showgrounds on Saturday. So first, we're going to talk about Rovers and Derry City, but let's listen to Danny Mandroiu and manager Stephen Bradley first on the Shamrock Rovers side.
That's super sub material there, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to come on and do your job. You know, scoring goals is my job, so delighted to get the 3 points.
How disappointed were you that you weren't starting?
You're going to be disappointed when you're not starting, but come on and make an impact like that. Listen, it's all about the 3 points at the end there. I don't care. We got the 3 points, and that's all.
Were you impressed with Derry, though?
Yeah, very impressed. I thought they were excellent, well organised, but we go to the end. We don't stop until we win.
And what about the atmosphere here tonight? Something special?
Electric, isn't it? It's like you won the league again, but unbelievable. Fans are great.
Well, with performances like that, maybe you will again?
Yeah, definitely. Who knows? Hope so.
Tell us about the goal.
Sorry?
Tell us about the goal.
Yeah, Andy Lyons does great. Comes inside. Keep fumbles it a bit, and I'm just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and you nearly got another one.
Yeah, I think I could have had 2. So, yeah, just delighted to get the 3 points.
Well done tonight. Congratulations.
Thanks. Cheers, thank you.
Cheers. Congratulations, Stephen. That was tight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. To be honest, I thought Derry were very good first half. Alan makes a brilliant save for us to keep us in the game because we were really poor. They were very good, and we stayed in the game. I suppose that's what champions do. And second half, we played for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and we got a reward.
The substitutes again made such a difference. It's really become a theme of the season, hasn't it?
Yeah, we keep saying that we believe the squad is really, really strong. And the subs are going to be just as important as the players that are starting, and they proved that again tonight.
Danny Mandroiu comes on, scores a goal, could have had another.
Yeah, Danny should really be playing, but he's picked up a knock last week and we're just trying to mind him a little bit. But he's been fantastic. He gave us so much energy when he came on. Looked a real threat. He was very good.
Did Derry surprise you?
No, they didn't. They came and played. They came and pressed us like we knew they would. We were just really poor in the first half. We were sloppy, we were slow in what we did. Our decisions were poor. But they were very good, to be fair to them. And like I said, Alan kept us in the game in the first half.
And the atmosphere here tonight really was special, wasn't it?
Brilliant, fantastic to see. Sellout crowd, pitch, brilliant. Two good teams and the away team that comes to win the game. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Well done.
Cheers, thank you.
All right, that was Danny Mandroiu and also manager Stephen Bradley from the Shamrock Rovers side of things. We'll also have a clip of Will Patching from Derry City very, very shortly, because he was also speaking to Tony O'Donoghue at full time with the game live on RT2 and the RT player. But first, on the flow of the game, as Tony asked Stephen Bradley there, was he surprised by Derry City? He clearly isn't, because he knows how good a team they are. And just looking at the flow of the game, Derry City were brilliant for probably an hour of that game, and then Shamrock Rovers showed the performance of champions in a way by being able to dig their way back in, and also with the depth that they showed. So, Paul, in terms of the flow of the game and how things changed, how did Derry first establish control, and then as the game wore on, how did Shamrock Rovers manage to flip the script?
Good question, Raf. I think Stephen Bradley mentioned in his interview there that, Derry actually came to win the game, and you don't see that often with teams at Tala. A lot of teams sit in, play a bit of a low block. This is completely opposite with Roy Higgins and how his side set up. I mean, first and foremost, their energy about the park was brilliant. I think they got into Rovers' faces. They didn't let them play out from the back that some teams do, and they went kind of man for man in the middle, and that probably shocked Rovers a bit, and they were struggling to get out of their own half. So when they didn't have the ball, their press was really well organised, really structured, and worked really well. But I think when you flip that around, you look at how they played out from the back themselves. I thought they were excellent. The angles they offer each other. I think the combinations they have with the likes of Patching and Brandon Kavanagh in midfield work really well. And they've got some really creative players and kind of get them through the thirds to feed that front line, in particular kind of McGonigal and Matty Smith. And probably just lacking maybe a bit more accuracy in the final third, or actually just a bit more ruthlessness in the chances that they had, they would have been ahead. And if they'd gone ahead, they might have been difficult to peg back, but they just couldn't put the kind of final piece of jigsaw together to actually score in that first half, because their performance with and without the ball was really, really strong. I was actually looking at it and I was thinking, if there was one kind of facet to their game that they were missing, was probably somebody in the likes of Michael Duffy, who's out at this moment in time, somebody who can maybe just burst past somebody or just be ruthless in front of goal. And I kind of felt as if they had that option in the final third, they may have probably gone in at half-time ahead. But at half-time, Shamrock Rovers maybe, after being a bit frazzled, got to regroup, put a bit more structure on their play, and they looked far more organised in the second half. Now, they weren't brilliant, Ralph. It wasn't their finest performance, but they did enough to probably get themselves back into the game. And we keep going on about it, and Bradley went on about it in his post-match interview. The options they have off the bench is just so much stronger than any other team. If you're able to bring on Sean Kavanagh, Dylan Watson, Danny Mandroiu, they probably start for most other teams in the league. And it was Danny Mandroiu who popped up with the goal. And that just bodes so well for the confidence of the team, that they didn't play very well, but against their greatest rival, they were able to come away with 3 points. And if you just look at the swing of points over the last number of weeks, after trailing Derry by quite a number of points and now being, 4 points ahead, for me, it kind of has a feel that was a massive momentum shift on Friday night. And I find, and I look at the table now, and I think Shamrock Rovers is going to be very hard to catch.
Yeah, because in that span, as you said, 4 points clear for Shamrock Rovers. Derry City have picked up 2 from a possible 9, and Shamrock Rovers have just been on a roll, and that's kind of flipped the script, because obviously they were chasing for a little bit. But Karl, I think you said it before we hit record, it actually kind of reminded you of the kind of title races you were involved in when Cork City were going up against Dundalk.
Yeah, it was. Look, again, we thought at the time with Cork that we had, I suppose, the beating of Dundalk in a lot of games, but in the crunch games, more times than not, we would have played well, but they would have came out on top. And it just kind of reminded me of that, where Derry kind of played to their maximum. They played very, very well on the day, but it was Shamrock Rovers who come away with the 3 points. They probably couldn't have played much worse. It's probably one of the worst they've played this season, but again, that comes down to Derry's press. But it's just what champions do. They go away, they find a way to grind it out while things aren't going well. They're hard to beat. I suppose they can thank Alan Manis for 1 or 2 good saves in the game as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Shamrock Rovers come away with the 3 points, and it's just the mark of champions. And I'm sure from now till the end of the season, they'll kind of kick on with that. And I'd say it would be tough for Derry. It'll give them good belief that, look, they're a good team, and they certainly show they can play good football. But when it comes down to it, these are the big games, and then 3 points, it's only 3 points, but it kind of means that little bit more, that I suppose it gives Shamrock Rovers the belief that, look, we're the team to beat. And I suppose for Derry, it'll be a bit of a kick in the teeth knowing they played their best and came away with nothing.
Yeah, and I think certainly from Will Patching, who was man of the match for Derry City, afterwards and won the award, it was kind of clear from his face, like just the kind of level of disappointment, because he knew they'd played well. So we might just listen to him first, and we'll talk a little bit about Derry City off the back of it.
You were well in this game.
Yeah, we was, First half we played well. Second half they got on top of us a bit, but just got to take our chances when it matters.
I suppose the quality of the substitutes did make a difference for Shamrock Rovers, would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. They've got good quality, even off the bench, so we always knew that, and they managed to get one in the last 10 minutes or whatever it was, yeah.
I guess it proves, though, that there's not that much of a gap between the sides.
No, that takes them 4 points ahead now, so it's definitely not over, and it's a long season, so we'll be fighting till the end.
Best of luck to you. Well done.
Cheers, man.
As Will Patching said there, it's definitely not over. Actually, one thing that was just kind of interesting there before we go more into Derry City was just the noise. He can barely hear the questions, and obviously I can barely hear his answers there. But Anthony, just the sense of occasion, there was a good build up to it in the lead into the game, and just even looking at the images of the stands from the TV, like it just it looked like the kind of top of the table game that we do want to plug.
Absolutely. No, the league needs it, Raf. I mean, Karl talking about the Cork City Dundalk rivalry over a number of years, and how great those games and intense those games were, and those two teams really drove each other on as well. It was interesting after this game because Rory Higgins has been quite conservative about talk around Derry City, but he did say that, look, we're close to being, I think he said exactly words, we're close to being a hell of a team. So they can take a lot out of that Shamrock Rovers game. And I think they can actually take a good bit out of the Pats game as well, where they drew 0-0, but it kind of looked like, Pats, at the start of the season, I would have rated as a team that can get involved in the title conversation, but the respect that they showed Derry, having been outplayed in Inchicore, that was a real dogged, batten down the hatches type of performance from Pats up in Derry, and you get the sense that they are a coming team. As Paul said, we still haven't seen Michael Duffy. We haven't seen a lot of Patrick McElhenney this season either. And I think when you look at Shamrock Rovers, when we were giving our title predictions at the start of the season, we were talking about Rovers, that knack of churning out wins, but also getting a lot of late goals. A lot of that is down to squad depth. I mean, you're bringing on the likes of Mandrow, Graham Burke. These are serious footballers to be bringing on in the second half of games, or 20 minutes to go, where players are getting a little bit fatigued, and it's just that little bit, that's the last little gap to bridge at the top, and it's the hardest gap to bridge. I think with Derry this season, and again, Rory Higgins did reference this, like it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen this season. They might just have to maybe go close or hit the woodwork one year before they actually do it and really push Rovers close. So I think we saw the two best teams in the country on Friday night. It's an exciting time for Derry. They got some really good players. They play a good brand of football as well. And I think it's not that we haven't seen the last of their enforcements either. We could see another player or two coming in even in the summer just to freshen them up. So it's good times. And as I said, it's good for the league. It's good for the division to have two very good sides duking it out at the top of the table. So it's what we all want to see.
Yeah, as Anthony and Karl said there, this is sort of only the beginning for Derry City, Paul. So there's a sense of a proper rivalry growing here, because Derry City obviously have the investment and the structures are being put in place, and they're probably the coming team for the next few seasons. So this is just the beginning of a rivalry between Derry and Shamrock Rovers.
100%, and you mentioned it there. After resources are there to actually add to the squad, they got good financial backing behind them. So if they do need to bring in extra players or extra resources, you would imagine that the support is going to be there. I think when you look at the squad on Friday night as well, it's quite a good age profile amongst the players. You're not looking at a team that's maybe going to have to be chopped up and added to over the next 2-3 years. You've got a really good foundation there of players who are probably kind of coming into their prime, supported by a number of players, young upcoming players who've shown great potential. So if you can add to that squad, they're not going to be far off. And if they can get McElhenney and Duffy back and fit, that's going to be a huge bonus to them as well. So like Anthony mentioned there, maybe it's a case that they go close this year. You'd certainly fancy them for a good run in the cup as well with the squad and the performances they put in to date. But there's certainly signs that they're going to progress. I mean, Friday night was a clear indication that they've progressed a lot over the last number of months. Roy Higgins, as well, as it probably can't go under the radar without giving him a shout out. The work he's done there is certainly evident in their play. So if they do add, which you would imagine they will, just to kind of get them that bit closer, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how this one kind of meanders over the next 12-18 months.
Yeah, so 4 points the gap at the top now with Shamrock Rovers leading after the last couple of weeks and that run of 3 games. Paul, obviously, as a former UCD player as well, I'd be interested to get your take on their victory at Finn Harps, because we've been kind of talking about the difficult season they've had. They hadn't been able to pick up a win, a lot of good draws at home, and then suddenly, Liam Kerrigan pops up with a much needed goal and an excellent finish as well. And there's a hope now. Obviously, they're probably going to lose a couple of their best players now going forward, but there is a little bit of hope now that maybe they can avoid the drop.
It looked ominous probably about 3-4 weeks ago when they just weren't picking up points anywhere. I think the last time I was on with you, Raf, we were with Garth, and I was saying the thing about UCD is they can pop up with some freakish results against some of the bigger teams and upset sides and pick up points when you least expect them to. And that probably lends itself to that Dundalk result where, yes, of course, Dundalk went down to 10 men, but they managed to peg them back and they picked up a point. And that would have done wonders for the confidence of the squad. And they've probably taken that into the game against Finn Harps, which was essentially not a must win, but it was a bit of a 6 pointer already in the season. And it was good to see them go up there and get 3 points. And it actually gets them now within kind of reachable distance to Finn Harps, that they can kind of cling on to them and stay with them now for a number of weeks. And if they were to pick up a couple of results, well, confidence will start to build. And, UCD is always made up of a huge number of younger players within the squad. So is it a surprise that they lost the first couple of games while getting used to the Premier Division? Probably not. Is there a chance that they could pick up a number of points over the next number of weeks? Yes, there is. You would have to say that. But what's, I guess, essential for UCD is that they hold on to Kerrigan and Whelan. The win has come from Kerrigan goal. I think both goals came from Whelan against Dundalk. If they want to have any chance of staying in the division, they're going to have to hang on to them. And you would imagine Shamrock Rovers are probably going to come calling for both of those players, particularly with the success that they've had with the likes of Ferrugia O'Neill, Scales, and the relationship that obviously exists between the two clubs. If Rovers were to sign them and maybe Whelan and Kerrigan stay there for the next 6 months of the season, well, maybe that might be a win-win for both teams. But the performances seem to be improving. They're picking up points. If they can, latch on to Finn Harps and stay with Finn Harps, well, you never know. They might still have an opportunity of staying in, because it did look ominous a couple of weeks ago, but there's certainly progress there.
Yeah, definitely looking good for them. Finn Harps we'll probably talk about over the next couple of weeks as well, because they've got some important games. They're playing Drogheda very soon as well, and they're just, they're both Drogheda. We'll talk about a little bit later on as well, because they've started to slip a little bit, and they're still a little bit out of range of UCD, but it's only 5 points or so of a difference. But let's talk about Dundalk and Bow. So Dundalk beating Bohemians 3-1, having gone a goal down and then fighting back, and we'll talk about their home record very shortly. But first, here's Stephen O'Donnell, the Dundalk head coach.
Look, if we'd lost the game tonight, we wouldn't approach training any differently next week, or approach the games next week any differently. We sort of believe in what we're doing in the process, and I'd like to think there is, but we're very happy where we're at. As I keep saying, there was 2 players and 2 younger players signed in December, middle of December, and pre-season started at the start of January. So we've a good squad assembled and really talented players and really brilliant players to work with, really good attitude, and they keep sort of coming in every week, really grinding.
And mention of signing players, will you be in the market come the transfer window?
I think you always have your ears open and your eyes open and seeing what's available, so we'll be no different. We'll see where we're at, but as I said, I'm really enjoying working with the current group of players.
Yeah, and Stephen, of course, it's a trip to Derry next for you.
Yeah,
what about that?
Self-explanatory. One of my good friends, Rudy's doing a brilliant job there. I think they were well in the game tonight and could have got something from it. So Brandywell's one of the toughest, if not the toughest, places to go in the league. And as I said, Rudy's doing a brilliant job there. They're a really strong team, really good team, lots of good individuals. So we're under no illusions the task next week, but we're really looking forward to it. Derry are getting good crowds now, so it'll be a great atmosphere to play in.
Okay, so that is Dundalk head coach Stephen O'Donnell speaking to Adrian Eames after the 3-1 win over Bohemians. So, Karl, from Dundalk's point of view, obviously the draw against UCD last time out would have been quite a setback, having been in good form previous to that. But the home comfort seemed to suit this Dundalk team well. They've been in good form, at least at Oriel.
Yeah, they've been in good form in general. I think Stevie went in, and it's going to take him a bit of time. Again, he's going to be, I suppose, assessing all the players he's got, I suppose, not just for this season, but mainly for next. I know he would have probably looked at this season as a season to build, next year probably a season to start to challenge, and then the following year, okay, I need to start to try to win competitions. I think the style of football he's got them playing at the moment is fantastic. When you look at the Robbie Benson goal, it was a thing of beauty. And again, I know everyone would have been looking at the key word passes. Obviously, it was sensational, a fantastic pass. But I look at the goal scorer for the first goal, Pat Oban, and his hold-up play is what he brings to that Dundalk team. Not just goals, but the man's been doing it for year in, year out now, goals. And his all-around link-up play is, for me as a striker, if I was a winger playing with him or a number 10 playing with him, you couldn't ask for a better teammate to play with. His hold-up play and how he kind of takes the pressure off you in terms of, I suppose, the centre-backs to be more so worried about what he's doing. It just gives, I suppose, so much freedom to attackers to make runs off him because how good he holds it up, and obviously because how good he is in the air. But Stevie's building something that they're going quite well at the moment, and I think I suppose Dundalk fans will be quite happy with how things have started with him.
Yeah, which will be probably in contrast to Bohemians fans. So let's listen to Keith Long, who was also speaking to Adrian Eames after that result.
We're very disappointed with the performance. We can have no complaints. We lacked energy, lacked intensity, which is disappointing because we played so well last week and we wanted to try and build upon it. Training's been good, but we fell flat tonight.
Why do you think that was? Because you started the match very well, you got the goal after 15 minutes, but I guess Dundalk really came at you in the second half. But the first half display, there were encouraging signs there for you, weren't there?
We got ahead, but I don't think we played to what we did previously, what we did last week. Even in the first half when we're 1-0 ahead, I thought we were particularly wasteful in terms of turning over the ball in transition. So we got to secure the first pass in order to try and build counter-attacks. We were very good at that last week and we didn't quite do that tonight. So our first pass after turnover was error strewn. We gave the ball away a little bit. We didn't capitalise on those moments, and we didn't quite work, Dundalk enough. And like I said, we lacked a little bit of intensity, a lot of energy around the team. And like I said, I don't think it was just the second half. I think it was throughout the game, really, if I'm being honest.
All right, so that is Bohemians manager Keith Long speaking after that defeat to Dundalk. And Anthony, I suppose you can just listen to his voice to get a gauge of the frustration. Like, it's quite obvious there. The inconsistency is the thing. There doesn't seem to be a pattern in terms of results. They can be quite good some weeks, and then they can't seem to follow it up in a long-term way.
Yeah, frustration definitely in Keith Long's interview there. I think that's 5 times now, Raf, where they've been ahead in matches this season and then lost the game. And then there's been other games where they've been in winning positions and maybe ended up drawn. So I think the Benson goal for Dundalk was absolutely brilliant move, but it was naive. Like, there was a naivety sometimes with balls defensively where they did kind of get pulled out of position. I think the right back sort of rushed into an area that he didn't need to go, and then suddenly they're exposed. So look, I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on, because I've seen them at times this season and thought they look like a solid, decent outfit. Maybe it's a little bit of belief again, if you look at the type of players that they lost from the dressing room from last season, it might just take a little bit of time to gel, and the chemistry might be a little off. Maybe there's a lack of leadership at times. You'd back Keith Long to steady them and see them out to have a solid enough campaign, but it is up and down for Bowles at the minute. I don't know. Yeah, it feels like they're kind of meandering a little bit. Maybe he'd like to bring in another player or two to try and stiffen them up for the second half of the campaign. But it's frustrating when you're like that, especially when you're giving away leads. That it does affect confidence. You start to maybe internally or subconsciously think that you can't close certain games out. But look, don't forget, you're going to Oriel Park. It's a hard place to go. Dundalk are an improving outfit. They're starting to come together a bit. They've got some very good players, obviously. So, we'll see. We'll see how they react over the next few weeks.
In contrast, then Shelburne are a lot more confident now, especially at home, where they'd gone. It's like buses almost. The cliche of you wait for so long, and then two come along at once. And they've now a second home win in a row. This time against Drogheda, winning 1-0, and Sean Boyd again proving crucial in terms of finding the net. Paul, again, they seem to be turning things around there.
Yeah, they do, Raf, and I'd say nothing will please the Shells management team more than a clean sheet as well. I think that's, they've been quite leaky, particularly at home over the course of the season, so that will certainly build confidence. And when you got somebody who's banging form like Sean Boyd at the moment, it certainly helps that he probably feels like he doesn't need too many chances to actually score a goal. So there at Shamrock Rovers, while Sean was there, and when I went in, I was really excited by the potential of him, and he certainly had kind of the attributes of a striker that you would say, God, he's got a real good chance of progressing through the game. Injury and maybe falling out of favour at Shamrock Rovers maybe halted that progression, but he certainly seems like over the last number of weeks and months he seems quite at home at Shelbourne. And when you've got somebody, Shep, be able to talk to you about this, but a striker banging form with confidence, it certainly helps, and you can see that in his all-round play. He's good at holding the ball up. He can run in behind, and he's probably scored a variety of goals both inside and outside of the box over the last number of weeks, whereby you think if Shells can continue to supply him, well, then he's got a chance of scoring goals. But they've had a weird enough season. They've probably popped up with big wins when we didn't expect it, and then dropped some silly points. So if they can turn some of those losses into draws, you can probably see them maybe latching onto that middle group. That the division already kind of has almost three tiers to it, where you've got the top two, the bottom two, and then there's a pack of teams who are just kind of littered with inconsistency throughout the season and can't just seem to put a good run of form together. So that project seems to be taking shape quite well. You can certainly see what it is they're trying to do in their play, and that's being reflected now in picking up more points. So it's boding well. It's boding well for Shells at this moment in time.
Yeah, and then finally on the Premier Division, Drogheda United, as I said, we might touch on them a little bit because they were actually quite good in terms of just picking up points here and there earlier in the season, and they've just gone on a little run now, 4 defeats in a row, and have slipped back closer to where Finn Harps are, and then obviously UCD not a million miles away. But obviously Finn Harps and Drogheda facing each other now this coming Friday. So huge game for both, Anthony.
Yeah, it is. No, it's exactly as Paul says. It's a mini league now, really, at the bottom. That 3, I thought Wales might get sucked into it, but they've kicked on now with a couple of wins and could potentially peel themselves away from that. Look, Drogheda, the quality Drogheda lost in the off season. James Brown and Joe Redmond, who's been excellent for Pats. Doyle as well, who's done well for Pats. Maybe it's just starting to catch up on them a little bit. They've also, been unlucky as well with injuries. They're missing Adam Foley. He's been injured. He was a good, he's a good out ball up front. He's a bit of physicality, and he's a good runner as well. Darren Markey's been injured. They're just conceding too many goals. They're conceding too many goals at the minute. They need to find a way to tighten up. It's just a massive game for them against Harps, because it could be ultimately those games, UCD, Harps, Drogheda. That ultimately could settle it towards the end of the season, and they'll know that. So they'll kick on into that game, and if they could get 3 points there, that's another massive shot in the arm, because it might just trigger another little 2-3 game spell where they pick up 3-4 games, they might pick up 7 points. You know, those little spurts might just be enough to get you away from that bottom two and get you over the line. But yeah, look, it was always going to be a tough campaign for Drogheda, and I do think, like, I did fear for them at the start of the season. I think, stating the obvious here, I can't see UCD lifting themselves. I think UCD will lose the two lads, Whelan and Kerrigan, and it's very difficult to see them hoist themselves away from the bottom if that's the case. And then after that, it's between Harps and Drogs for the bottom two, you know. And could you bet against Ollie Horgan? He's done it so many times. Yeah, we'll see. Look, it's going to be great. It'll be a proper blood and thunder 6-pointer game, that Harps and Drogheda.
Yeah, and what they're trying to avoid is drop to the first division, where the results this weekend were Wexford losing 4-0 at home to Galway, who joined Cork City level on points at the top, with Cork having a bye week, and then Waterford beating Cove Ramblers 4-2. So Waterford in third and seemingly back in form in terms of picking up results. And then Treaty United and Bray Wanderers drew 2-2. And then Athlone Town lost 2-1 at home to Longford Town in the Midlands Derby. But first, just on Galway, because Cork City had a bye week and Galway United have been keeping pace with them, Karl. Obviously, look, you know John Caulfield very well in terms of what he brings to an outfit. He seems to have Galway in brilliant form, and it's a proper 2-horse race in that division. What's he done to kind of create that atmosphere at Galway?
Yeah, well, first of all, he's had a bit of a tactical masterclass he's put Stephen Walsh up front, someone who's probably not played up front for maybe since I played with him about 10 years ago. He's played centre half and left back, and all of a sudden John's put him up front. I think he has 8 league goals this season, which is a phenomenal return for what was essentially a defender to go up front. He's made them hard to beat, and they're now playing, I suppose, with I suppose what some might say is a bit of a direct football approach, but again, it's certainly working for them, and I suppose they're picking up points and they're staying with Cork, which is, I suppose, a testament to them, considering how good Cork have started and how strong, I suppose, their investment has been.
Yeah, and then at the bottom end of the first division, so Athlone Town, and they parted ways with Martin Russell last month. There hasn't been a replacement brought in yet, but Karl, I know your name in the papers, at least online as well, was one of the names linked to it, the vacancy. In terms of what you can probably say about it or not, how much truth is there to the the view that there is interest in you and possible interest from you in taking on that sort of position?
Yeah, look, I suppose there's no point in hiding it. Myself and Kieran Clough are extremely interested in the role. I suppose not much more I can say than that, other than we've watched them almost every game they've played this season up to this point, and I believe there's a lot to work with there. We're extremely interested, but look, it's other than that, at the moment, there's not much else I can really say. That it is something we are interested in.
Okay, so we have our news line there, so we'll park that there. So obviously interest from yourself in regards to the Athlone Town vacancy. Obviously Athlone also involved in the Women's National League, and from there obviously there's a lot of interesting results, and we've also got a clip of Saoirse Noonan coming up. But in terms of results anyway, Cork City with a new manager in charge lost 2-1 at home to Wexford Youths. Galway beat Treaty United 3-0. Bohemians lost 3-0 at home to champions Shelburne, who continue on their merry way at the top. And then Peamount, after the defeat to Shelburne last week, lose again, and this time to Athlone 1-0 at home. And then DLR Waves beat Sligo Rovers 3-2. So let's listen to Shelburne's Saoirse Noonan after the win at Bows. She was speaking to Jonathan Higgins.
Saoirse, I suppose the Dublin derbies are always going to be difficult. They certainly ask you questions at the start, but the longer we went on, the more your class showed, I thought.
Yeah, look, I think we found it hard to find our feet in the first few minutes. It was a warm day as well, but look, we got the first half goal, and I think we went in at half time, settled ourselves down, talked about things that we had to change. We came out in the second half and absolutely did, and look, what a brilliant win.
You seem to be starting to, and the more you got control of the game, set pieces, you seem to be creating more and more problems from them as well.
Yeah, look, I think we just couldn't get going the first half. I think we were under-hitting passes, we weren't reading each other well off the ball. The pitch was holding up a bit, and it was just kind of everything was going wrong for us, but we kept the heads, we kept going, and yeah, look, I think once we got that first goal, we relaxed and we started to find each other more and start playing football.
Your goal as well took about a beautiful finish. I think you just kind of went outside of the right on it there.
Yeah, I think, look, Noelle's class player, and I knew she was going to try put it into the box. When I cut across the defender, I just saw I had to direct it towards the goal, and I was lucky it went in.
And then in the second half, you took control, and the goals started to come in, and you were quite dominant in the second half, I thought.
Yeah, look, we're a footballing side. We like to keep the ball on the floor. We like to pass it around players, and I think it was the second or third goal we did that as well down the right side, and it's just brilliant just to see I suppose a women's side doing that now, and it's not just hoofing the ball. And yeah, look, I love playing with Chelsea. I love passing the ball and creating like little link ups, and you see that all day long in this team.
Yeah, speaking of the link ups, yourself and Noelle, you're such a skillful player as well, but you do seem to match each other quite well.
Yeah, definitely. I think as I said at the start, we kind of struggled to find each other and we weren't working, but as the game went on, it kind of comes natural to us, and as I said, we both like the ball to feet. We're not really the quick runners in behind, and yeah, look, we let our feet play the game, and that's how we create the chances.
And then on a personal note, how are you coming back from injury, back on loan as well here? Are you enjoying your time again?
Yeah, I'm loving it. Look, as I said, it's days like this you love, and when you're scoring goals, it makes it all the better, and that's what it's about.
And particularly in the team, top of the table, and seemingly winning game after game.
Yeah, like I think coming into the season there was a bit of pressure on ourselves, I suppose, from being champions last year, and we know, I suppose, last year it was out of our hands in a way, and this year we started off the league saying it's in our hands now, and that's where we're going to go forward, and we have a big game next week now, so push on from here.
Right, so that is Shelburne Saoirse Noonan after another vital win for Shelburne, beating Bohemians 3-0, and coupled with the result for Peamount losing to Athlone. Anthony, it's been in terms of a turnaround, because we were building up to the massive game between the top two, which occurred last weekend, of course, and then suddenly, almost like in the men's Premier Division, there's been that massive turnaround in a short space of time, and the narrative has sort of changed.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's plenty of road to go here as well. I mean, we remember last season, the climax of that division was unbelievable. There'll be plenty of twists and turns. And I think Wexford Youths, they were very, very close last season, Wexford Youths, not talked about as much, but they were only a couple of results from really having a chance of winning it on the last day. They only ended up 4 points or 5 points off Shells, who won it. So I'd expect a few more twists and turns, but, Shells have a little buffer now. And, if they're not, if they're beating the likes of Peamount and Wexford, it's hard to see where they're going to drop too many points. But look, as I said, after last season, you wouldn't bet against, as I said, a few more major twists and turns along the way in that title race.
Yeah, and a little bit further down from the title race, of course, Emily Corbett got the winner for Athlone, but they've been quietly impressive in fourth there, and maybe they would have gone under the radar ahead of the season, but between themselves and DLR Waves and Galway as well, I suppose we can add in, they're in that mix for the the battle beneath the bottom three.
Yeah, I mean, there's improving teams in the division, and they are one of them. It's good to see Bohemians as well have improved. Sligo Rovers are doing well in their first season, so that's good. It's good for the league. It's good for the division, for across the board, for the quality to come up together. And as you say, Athlone are making good strides, which is good, positive.
Yeah, and this weekend's fixtures, so as we finish up here, so in the men's Premier Division, so UCD at the bottom facing the table toppers Shamrock Rovers, so it'll be a tough game for UCD as they try and maintain the momentum from getting their first win of the season against Finn Harps. And then on Friday, that game is on the Thursday, and then on the Friday, Derry City hosting Dundalk, as Stephen O'Donnell alluded to in the clip earlier on, and then Bohemians taking on Sligo Rovers, also 7:45 p.m. kickoff. And then Drogheda United and Finn Harps also facing each other. As we said, it's a huge game for both as they try and push away from that relegation playoff spot. And then St. Pat's against Shelburne in a Dublin derby. And then on Monday, there's also a full set of fixtures too. So Drogheda United against Shamrock Rovers, Shelburne against UCD, St. Pat's against Bows, Sligo Rovers against Derry City, Finn Harps against Dundalk. And then in the first division, we have Cork City against Wexford, Galway against Athlone, Treaty United against Cove Ramblers, and then on the Saturday, Longford Town against Waterford. And then in the Women's National League this Saturday coming, Shelbourne against DLR Waves, Sligo Rovers against Cork City, Galway against Bows, and then Wexford against Peamount, and Athlone against Treaty United, which almost brings us to a close. But just even reading out those fixtures and the amount of weeks where we've had that Friday to Monday sort of turnaround, Paul, it's hard on the legs. And then once we get to the European season as well, just at the top end of the Premier Division, it'll probably separate out those teams that obviously have more depth from the ones that where it's a little bit tighter.
Yeah, and those 6 points, if you are to put back-to-back wins together, can have a major improvement on your standings within the league table. I guess it is an important run in now. I think there's 3 games before the mid-season break, so there's a number of teams there. You think the likes of a Bows or the likes of a Finn Harps or Drogheda, or even further up the table, where they're in need of results. And this is obviously kind of like a good time of year where if you can put some good performances and points on the table, it kind of gives you a breath of confidence going into the break, whereby you can come back into the second half of the season with maybe looking up as opposed to looking down. So some really important fixtures and important times coming together for some certain squads, and also going to be a test on the strength and depth of those teams. And naturally enough, the ones with the greater resources are probably going to pick up more points than the ones who are kind of having to use the same 11 2 fixtures over 4 days. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. I fully believe that Shamrock Rovers are probably going to pull away from here, and whether or not Derry can stick with them will probably be the question. And then the fight for third and fourth for those European spots will be interesting as well. So see if the likes of Dundalk can kind of pick up on the improvement that they've shown, as Shep mentioned, and then obviously very interesting down the bottom end of the table.
Yeah, and then obviously Karl is supposed to finish off as well. As said there, it's probably depth that's going to separate teams out, and obviously we're getting closer and closer to the period where squads will be changing. There's going to be that little bit of recruitment, so I'm sure managers and different intermediaries are fairly busy at this moment in time.
Yeah, I'd say it's a very big, I suppose, a week and a half, 2 weeks for Derry. I know Rory's probably, I suppose everyone's kind of heard about the vast amount of money he apparently has at his disposal, but you look at the next 3 games and it could be potentially make or break. Shamrock Rovers have 3 very winnable games. For Derry, each game is very difficult that they have coming up. Obviously they have Dundalk, then Sligo, and then I suppose the derby against Finn Harps, and you look at them going, they're potentially 3 games where they could drop points in. If they can hang on, if they can possibly get 3 wins or stay close to Shamrock Rovers, they can possibly strengthen in the window, and then obviously have a good, I suppose, kick on from there. For me, the big worry would be for UCD over anyone else. It looks very much nailed on that they were going to, I suppose, lose their 2 best players in this window, and I suppose for them, they would have had to get a nice point gap between themselves and possibly second bottom to kind of have any realistic hope of possibly not coming rock bottom. But it looks like Kerrigan will go, and Whelan probably will too as well.
Yeah, so we'll see how that pans out. Plenty of weeks still to go before we get to that, and obviously we're getting closer to an international break, which we'll be talking about probably from next week onwards, with Ireland back in action in the Nations League. But for today, that is it. Anthony Pyne, thanks a million for coming on, and then Karl and Paul, thanks for your time.
Thanks for that.
Cheers.